Hey guys, welcome to the Motherless Daughter series. Today we are talking about the day everything changed. And with me, I have my good sister, Shamia, and she's going to talk about her experience. And we're just going to have a nice little conversation because she is also a motherless daughter as well. Hi, Shamia.
Hello, happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you. Happy to have you. So we're just gonna slow walk it, have a nice little conversation about the day that everything changed for you. And I just want to, of course, first let you know that this is a safe space and let you know that however you want to conduct this, because I'm gonna let you do it how you want to, just so you feel comfortable, it's fine with me.
Thank you. I respect that. And I appreciate it.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the day that everything changed for you.
Oh, my goodness. Hmm. The day everything changed for me was when I received a phone call in the middle of the night from my sister, and she told me to hurry up and get to the hospital
Mm,
because my mom had been in an accident.
mm,
And I remember feeling, actually, in full transparency, like I told you, I had to go back and read a story that I read that I wrote in college about what happened, like those 3 days. It's called 3 days because that
mm,
is literally what happened from the day of the accident, the 20th of December 2001 to December 23rd. I ran down everything that happened in those 3 days. So I suppressed it, honestly, and I went back and I read over and I remembered exactly where I was and what I was doing when she called me and all of those things. So she was just like, "You have to get to the hospital right now. Mom's been in an accident." And I was like, "Huh?" I in my mind I was like, I just saw her because she had come by the house, well, in my apartment. I was living off North Main at that time. She came by and she saw Jordan. Jordan was in the bathtub and she spent a little time with him. And she was just like, I have a headache. I'm not feeling that great tonight. And I was just like, well, just go home. I kept saying that. And she was like, no, no, I have to work. So I remember standing at the door watching her like leave. I don't know if you remember how the apartment was. It's like my apartment was like towards the back. And like I looked out towards the breezeway and I like watched her walk out to the patrol car. And I never did that. That was just like so weird. So,
mm,
went to bed, whatever. And then, of course, the phone call. So, went up to the hospital, High Point Regional, and I remember hearing her before I got to the room. She was screaming, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And but the whole time she was like, "It's gonna be all right. God's got me. God's got me. I'm fine." And she was just
mm,
screaming, and she was trying to calm us down, and she was like, "Everything's fine. Everything's fine." But I'm like looking like, wow, it doesn't look too good. And I remember her saying to me, "Give me some Vaseline." She was like, "Give me some Vaseline. My lips are so dry." So I gave her some Vaseline or whatever. So eventually, though, they had to end up transporting her to Baptist in Winston because it was beyond what they could do. So we ended up going over there, and I don't know. I just had a feeling. It just felt, how you just have this feeling. You can't explain it. It was just something sitting in my spirit that was just like not right. And so over the course of those 3 days, my feeling was confirmed because, for instance, the doctor, he ended up leaving. It was right around Christmas. He ended up going out of town and leaving her in the hands of someone else.
mhm.
And I just thought that that was just, I don't know. It just seemed so inhumane to me, like at the time, to keep his vacation. And my mom was, I felt dying, So they ended up, of course, amputating her leg, the leg that um, was pushed into the dashboard like when she had the accident,
Mm,
amputating her leg. Then they had the crazy idea to amputate her other leg because her blood wasn't properly flowing and they needed to get things done, and I was just like, it was just going downhill from there. And I just remember seeing her and she was so filled with fluid. It was almost like you could press her skin and like any hole, like
mhm.
fluid would come out of, like where they had been taking her, getting her blood and stuff like that. So she was just so swollen. And they said, well, she can hear you, she can hear you. And I just remember just talking to her or whatever. But um honestly, like I said, it was a blur. I did not remember a lot of that until I read what I wrote.
Mhm.
So December 20th, 2001 was the day that everything changed for me. My world was just turned upside down early in the morning. And it has not been the same since. It has not been the same. It's just been a void,
Yeah.
you know, the whole time. So,
Yeah. Two things that come up for me is first, I didn't know that she was at Baptist. That's where my mom was.
of course,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course.
That's where she was.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, the number thing with me, you said it was 3 days, it
Mm-hmm.
was 3 months from the time my mom
Mm-hmm.
admitted into the hospital to the time she passed away. Well, time she got sick and then the time she passed away. But like you said, it just nothing will ever be the same. When you talk about watching her walk down the breezeway and you never do that, were there any other feelings or any other things that you felt like, man, that was something is going on or something ain't right?
So at the time, it was something happening. Like one of her fellow police officers was going through something. There was like an investigation or something happening with one of her really close friends, and she was very upset. And
Mhm.
so, hence the headache. She was
Mm.
just, she was just so stressed out and emotional. And no, it just was like this feeling sitting on me, like, just go home. Just go home, you know what I mean? And she was just like, no, no, I got work to do. And that's the only thing that I can remember is just feeling that, like, just go lay down, get you some rest or whatever. And she didn't want to do that because, just when you're going through something, you don't want to kind of sit in it. You want to stay busy and do things to kind of keep your mind off of it. So I understood that part, but no, nothing other than that. Like, I wanted her to get some rest and I wanted her to um, not be so stressed out. But I
Mhm.
got it, right? That was her friend. So
Right.
you know,
Yeah. I understand. And back then, our parents they weren't missing work.
no,
It,
oh, no,
it had to be something real serious for them to miss
mm-mm,
work. So
mm-mm, not at all.
yeah.
She showed up, honey. She showed up. So that was gonna be no exception, even though I was like, I know you have days, like you can do it, the logic. And she's like, no,
Mhm.
gotta do what I gotta do. So mhm.
And while you were at the hospital, was it all of your siblings?
Yes,
And
we
you
were
okay.
there. And the funny part was our house, or well, her house rather, because I wasn't living there at the time. There were so many people there.
Mhm.
Like when I remember coming back after she the chaplain came in and told us that she passed away. Going back home, I remember driving up Biltmore and it was cars just like parked. And I was
Mhm.
just like, what is going on? Not thinking that all these people were at her house. And
Mhm.
so I walked in and I just remember seeing faces I hadn't seen. I'm talking about like elementary school teachers, like
Oh,
people that I haven't seen in forever, and just walking. You knew how the house was configured. Like you walk in and it's some people were in the living room, some people stand in the hallway, in the kitchen. I walked through, walked back through towards her room. They were just everywhere.
mhm.
Um, I just I couldn't process it. It was very overwhelming. It was almost eh, like, why are you here? Because it's not real. You know what I mean? Like, but they had already, heard everything. I don't know who told who
Yeah, I
what,
was
but
gonna ask how
I have
like
no idea.
hmm.
I have no idea. I received a phone call. I remember from I was talking to um Jordan's dad and
Mhm.
his mom, and they were, praying with me or whatever. And I remember telling them, but then I have no idea how everybody else found out.
Right.
So I don't
Hmm.
know. Yeah, it's a lot.
It
It
is.
was a lot.
It is. And with everything changing, like, where were you in your life at that time?
Mm. So I was 20. So yeah, I was living, like I said, in an apartment off of North Main Street with Jordan. He was 3, and I was at Bank of America
Mhm.
working there, and I remember they were just so kind. They were like, take as much time as you need. I just remember receiving gift after gift after gift from them. They sent me flowers. They sent me all sorts of things. So I was in school, hence when I wrote this whole paper. Actually, it's like a whole portfolio of like my life. Um, and trying to figure it out. We were trying to, adult,
Yeah.
and work and go to school and take care of Jordan. And she was very instrumental in that, right? Because even though I was grown, she was helping me. Like I remember she was like, "Oh, just drop Jordan off over here and just head on to school so you don't be late. I'll take him over to daycare." She would take him up there and she'd just get to school. And so she was really instrumental in making sure that I was successful in school and that I stayed on track and all of those things. So I was a young adult,
Mhm.
you know, mother, but trying to figure it out on my own. And yeah, that just rocked my world,
Yeah.
just completely.
I can imagine. And you said you were 20.
20.
So in
20.
what ways do you think that losing your mom at that particular age, with all that was going on, like, in what ways do you think that affected you? How do you think it affected you and
Mm.
changed your life?
It was definitely a catalyst for me.
Mm,
And you knowing me, I've always been pretty ambitious and all of those things, but it was almost like a force, like, nah, you have really got to step up
mhm,
and take care of some business now and make sure. I just wanted to make my mom proud. I just wanted um to live a life that I would be proud of and also that she would be proud of.
mhm.
So I also miss those critical things, right? Like I didn't, when you think back and you're just like, gosh, I should have taken advantage. I should have asked these questions. I should have, you know what I mean? Like, and even the times where she would be like, oh, let's hang out. We would hang out from time to time, but it was just like, oh, I wanted to be with my friends and I wanted to do, I didn't take advantage of that. And so I have those regrets where I think, gosh, I could have been asking her about, her coming up and what it was like when she was 20 years old. Like what exactly did that look like? And of course, I hear these stories, from other people, but not directly from her. So I feel like I just did not take advantage of the time properly. And of course, I didn't know, what was going to happen, but I definitely needed her.
Yeah.
Early 20s, trying to again figure it out,
Yeah,
thinking
that's
to
a
put it
pivotal
together.
time in your life. Yeah.
Very, very. So, and like working in just the juggling act of it
Mhm,
all. Like, how did you do this? Like, yes, I had help, but at the end of the day, it's just like when you go home at night, it's you and your baby. You know what I mean? You're taking care of the baby. You making sure, the dinner's fixed and you making sure that they have what they need. So how I wanted to know like how you did that.
just the wisdom
The wisdom,
that
absolutely. And
come
then
from your
and then
mother.
the friendship.
Yeah.
The friendship. I think that's what really hurts me is that I miss that part. Like where, it was burgeoning, it was starting, but it wasn't to the point where we were like, hey mom, let's hang out, let's go. Da, 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 da. It never evolved to that or got to that place. And that makes me really, really sad that
Mhm.
it didn't. So
Yeah. I understand that. I get
yeah.
that. Going back to when you said that it was a catalyst for you and you wanted to make her proud, that took me right to your license plate.
Oh, absolutely. That I
Yeah.
will never get rid of. I will never, ever, ever
You
get rid of
have
that.
it.
I still have it. Absolutely. Because
It's on the
what I
back of
do.
your car or okay, okay.
Mhm,
And for the people that are listening, what
mhm.
does your license plate say?
So it's I do. for Yuma. So it's IDO, the number 4UMA.
Hmm.
And I've had that forever and it will remain
Yeah.
because I do. What I do for my mom and just her legacy and just let her know that I will never ever forget
Yeah.
all the sacrifices, everything that she's done and yeah, the path that she's laid for
Mhm.
me and my siblings and family members and people in the community,
Oh my
you
God.
know, and how she
It was
touched
definitely a
people, you know. Yeah. So
yeah.
that remains with me.
She was definitely a pillar of the community. Everyone that we grew up with knew her. She was everything to everybody.
Hmm.
How was it with you and your siblings? Like, did you guys lean on each other, or how was that relationship when it all happened, when everything changed?
We did. We leaned on each other pretty heavily, and then of course, sadly, you know, when people die, family starts not necessarily us, but like other family just started doing some questionable things, and you know, certain things weren't handled, I think, well through the process. And I feel like there were some vultures, not even family members, just people in general, just trying to take advantage of our grief.
Mhm.
And, you know, there were some decisions we made that might not have been the best decisions, but we were a united front. I'll say that. We stuck together pretty well. And each of us dealt with the grief in our own way. So, you know, I kind of was just like, go, 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 go. You know what I mean? Like I foot on gas. I was
Mhm.
not letting up, you know, and I was like, nah, I can't let anything slip through the cracks. Whereas, you know, my sister might have had more of uh a time where she had that grieving period where she was a little bit more emotional, and not to say that I didn't have that, but it was like in private. It
Yeah.
was like I was handling it behind closed doors, and I think too because my sister's older and she was like mini mama. She knew all mama's friends. She knew, you know, all the people. She was the contact. Even though I'm the responsible one, she was the one that everybody knew because she would always be the one that mom would have around,
Mhm.
and she knew all the family friends, the older people. So she had like a different way of handling things. And you know, of course, my brother, he handled things through his music. He just
Mhm.
put it all. That's kind of like his reality right there. So you know, we all handled it in different ways, but again, we were a united front. We didn't turn on each other. We were there as much as we could be for each other. I think during that time, while still grieving.
So, talking about the grief part of it, there were a couple of things that stood out to me: avoidant behavior and people taking advantage of your grief.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about if you've recognized it, one, which I think we had a conversation about that too, where about the avoidant behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about that for you. I know how it is for me,
Mm-hmm.
but tell
Mm-hmm.
me a little bit about that for you.
I think that it's just a matter of suppressing things to try to get through. Like we talk about this all the time. It's a huge part of my life. I think I don't have any recollection of. Like I have memories because of pictures or if
Mm,
someone says something to me, it might trigger something. But for the most part, it's like I suppressed it to
mhm,
get through it. So reading about those 3 days and the emotion I was going through, even after the 3 day, the funeral, even I clearly suppressed some things, like me reading through it, but it was my way to cope. It was my way to get through. Was to almost make it like it didn't happen. Kind of
mm,
like it's like, oh, I knew it happened, but it was that was how I dealt with the grief. Like it's just to put it to the back. Like I did not want to go back there and relive the sadness and the anger and the confusion and the anger that I had at God because I was just like I didn't understand why he would take there's so many terrible people in this world. Why do you take the good people? You know, I went through a whole period with that. So it was avoidant behavior to literally survive for me. I don't think that I could have did half of the things that I did if I was living in it
yeah.
and really really realized the magnitude of what happened, how it happened, even how the case played out in
Mhm.
the end, and how that was like another dagger, right, to the family. You lose your mother, she's no longer there, and then you lose literally the case when there was ample evidence to say it otherwise, that someone else was at fault. But nonetheless, so you suppress all of that, and you just, especially when you have a child,
Right.
especially when you have a child, that you live for that person. You don't want them to see you down. um you want them to see you winning and moving in the right direction. So that was important to me to do that. But it also hurt me,
Right.
because eventually I did go to therapy, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not even realize that that's what I was doing. But
Mhm.
I was.
It's very easy to do. It's almost like a knee-jerk reaction or like the
Hmm.
most natural thing to do, because that's what I started to do immediately. So I definitely understand that. If you don't mind, if you would elaborate on what happened, because you brought up the case, what actually happened?
The night of, I think it was, at that point, it was December 19th. My mom was driving her police car, and and of course, the roads are, you can't get me on the roads right now because that's a little too specific, but she was driving her police car. She put her light on to get through the light because she had gotten a call, or she was supposed to be somewhere. So somebody radioed her, and she put her light on. At the same time, a tractor trailer was coming the opposite direction, and it ran the light and collided with her car on the driver's side, so her side. What ended up happening with that was that there were several witnesses that came forward that said that they saw that the truck ran the light, and my mom basically was heading through, but they ran the light after it obviously turned. But the witnesses did not end up being credible because they had history, criminal history, and they did not take the witness statements, and they basically deferred to the fact that he was in the right, and she was the cause of the accident. They ended up dismissing the case. I remember it, but I suppressed that too. I
Mhm.
suppressed it too. And I also saw, I had a piece in here in my portfolio about that. Justice was not served in that situation. So that's, again, like I said, another dagger. She's not here, and then you have to deal with that. It just feels like her life just didn't mean as much to anybody else. I That's just how it felt.
Yeah. I can imagine that that probably was or felt like you had to do some sort of grieving all over again, or you
Mm,
had to relive
mm,
moments.
mhm.
Did you attended? Did you attend the trial?
Oh, I did.
Okay.
I did.
Yeah, to
Mhm,
relive those
mhm.
moments and then for it to turn out the way that it turned out. I can
Yeah.
imagine that that did not help at all.
No, it
Yeah.
did not. It did not. And thank God for, family and her friends, and the people that she worked with. They were just great people. They were like family to us. Like, that's one thing I
Mhm.
will say. I mean, she had some good ones. She had some really strong people around who made sure we were good, and they were very supportive throughout the process. But in the end, I just don't feel like justice was served in that
Yeah.
situation. Regardless, if more than one person said that they saw something, regardless of their criminal history or anything like that, I don't think that has anything to do with what they witnessed.
Right.
So,
I agree. I totally agree.
yeah.
I totally agree. One thing that stood out for me, being an outsider looking in at that time, I have the newspaper clipping. Is not of what you were trying to find, but it was of you guys coming out of the church.
Hmm.
And I remember being so upset.
Hmm.
Why would they put that in the newspaper? Like, why would they be up in y'all's face like that and you're grieving and you literally are just walking out of the church and it looks like the camera is like right
Hmm.
here in your face. It was so upsetting to me.
Hmm.
Tell me how that do you remember how that made you feel
Hmm.
during
Of
the
course,
time?
I didn't remember in the moment because I was clearly very emotional. But when I saw it, I was livid. I
Mhm.
was livid just because I felt like, it just wasn't tasteful, how they did
Very
that.
distasteful.
And then to go from feeling how I felt coming out the church and then driving down, what is that? What is that road?
Kivett Drive.
Pivot Drive, and
Mhm.
just seeing everybody alongside, just standing there, like it just felt like everybody was outside just watching us drive by, and that that did something to me. It was very emotional, but my heart was just like, oh my God, these people love my mom. Like, you know what I mean? They know her, and they're standing with us as a family. That's how I feel. I felt so supported, just full of appreciation.
I
Just
remember that moment, and it felt like something on a movie
Mhm,
because you would see all of the police officers standing, and I don't know if they were saluting or if they had their I don't know how they were positioned,
mhm.
but basically showing respect.
Yeah.
And it was kinda like it wasn't like like crowd, but just along driving through with all the people. I likened it to when they went through the neighborhood and Biggie died. And it was just like
Yeah, I
like
mean,
you said, everybody was outside and
yeah, it
everybody
was
was together miles all the way
miles.
from High Point to Greensboro. I remember, and it was amazing. It was
Mhm,
I know how I feel, so I can't even imagine like how you felt to see that and to see that everybody was showing such respect for
mhm,
your mom because she was a pillar in the community. She was everybody knew.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then the stories I would hear from people like, your mom helped me do XYZ, your mom, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I think I told you this when she passed and we had to go through all of her things. I found her checkbook. And I was just like, she had written checks to some of my friends, some of my sister's friends. It was just
just
had no
help.
idea. Had no idea. If she had it, you had it. That's how she was. And she was always gonna treat you like she was gonna act like mama. She was gonna be
Mhm.
mama in the situation. Like, go home. Why are
Yeah,
you here? You know what I mean? Like she would talk to you. She wouldn't just enforce. You know what I mean? So it was like a relationship. And I know what you're thinking right now. And I don't
well, you
I know
know, I
exactly what you're
know
thinking
what
right
you
now.
mean.
You know firsthand. Let's
I
just say
do.
that.
I do. I do. Yeah.
Let's
That
just
was
say,
that was an experience in itself. It was,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Let's just say she could be everywhere.
Everywhere, and I'll keep it short, but just imagine calling the police and your friend's mom shows up at your doorstep. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
But
hi.
anyway
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, she definitely, even then, like, in that situation that I was going through, it was she was mothering. She was mothering, she was very gentle, she was very caring and compassionate and understanding, and she handled the situation with like you said, like I was one of your siblings, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, she was very much appreciated. Is there anything else that you can think of that you want to share about how it changed, how that day changed your life?
Just to reiterate that I just feel like I missed out on the bonding period between mother and daughter, and that things go the way they're supposed to go, right? Life happens the way it's supposed to happen, but I just always wonder, like, who would I be if my mom was still alive? Because I can probably guarantee you I would not be here in Georgia. I probably would not have moved. I would never have met my husband. I would never have had my younger son. You know what I mean? So things happen the way they were supposed to, but I always think, like, what what would we be doing? Like, just thinking about her birthdays and like, oh, we'd be on a trip somewhere and just having a good time. I can just pick up the phone like, Ma, are you watching this show? Just I
Mhm.
just imagine that. And it just makes me so mad when people don't have that relationship with their mom. When I understand everybody's relationship isn't the same, they don't have a good foundation. I get that. But for those who do have that and they don't take advantage of it, and they, oh, mama getting on my nerves, and they're not talking to their mom, or they're not, that just makes me so upset because if I could turn back the hands of time and all the petty little, when I got mad at my mom, I like all of that stuff is just irrelevant. And I just live in the moment and just just download all of her wisdom and all of her love that she was trying to give me, even the silly goofy stuff that she would do that would get on my nerves, and I would just take it all in and just but hindsight is 2020.
Speaking of your husband, your son, your youngest son, what about the milestones? Were those things that you thought about during those times
Oh yeah,
when
wedding. Oh my gosh, like that was a very emotional time.
Mhm,
Um, and at the time, I had my cousin, Auntie Ann, who's
mhm,
also passed on now. She kind of stood in as a mother figure for me, and
mhm,
that was so meaningful for me. But it was like I just have like a nice little flower sitting on a chair, like in remembrance of her. But the absence was definitely felt. Like it just, I was happy, but it was like a piece was missing of me. And having, my baby boy and that whole period, and I could just imagine like if I were here, she would be here. So she'd be like, "Give
yeah,
me that baby, let me take." She would just,
mhm,
how she did with my oldest, and um, all of the milestones, even even as recent as me crossing Delta. And this is so funny because one of her longtime friends put a message on Facebook on my announcement, and she said, "Your mom would be so proud." And I could just imagine her screaming and just like, "Oh my God, that's my baby!" That's my baby." Like just just any of those moments. It's just like I feel like I got robbed. Like
yeah,
you just don't have that. And while you have other people in your life, I have my mother in love, and I have other people in my family who are just serving and like filling that gap.
mhm.
It's just can't
It's
replace mama.
the same.
It's She's irreplaceable.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know this is your podcast, but I do want to know from you the day your life changed, your part of the story. I don't know. I just feel like I need to ask that.
Okay, so the day that my life changed, I don't really consider it the day that she passed away
Hmm.
because my mom got sick. I want to say it was October, right before her birthday. I think it was right before her 47th birthday. And she got sick and then really quickly declined. So I wasn't able to talk to her because she lost her ability to talk. She
Hmm.
lost her ability to walk. So when she lost her ability to talk, and we talked on the phone like 10 times a day, like just calling for anything, that's when I started grieving. And I feel like my life changed at that time. And honestly, it was all a blur because it was so many moving pieces. And I just felt like I had to survive. I had to do what I had to do because I had young children. And then I lived in Charlotte, but she was in Winston-Salem. And then I had still had to work because I still had a household. And so I was traveling after work. Um, After I got off at 5 o'clock, I was getting on the road, driving to Winston almost every day. Yeah, every day until I asked
Hmm.
my job if I could work in the Triad area, and they allowed me to do that. So it was a little bit easier. But then that was me leaving my kids because they still had to go to school.
Yeah.
So that's when everything changed for me because it was like a huge adjustment. Um, and her just being in the hospital, not being able to talk, not being able to walk or do anything for herself. And like that was totally not my mom. And so when she passed, I was at the point where I was like, I had stopped at that point praying for healing. And I started asking God to, if you're not going to heal her, then just take her. Because I don't know how much longer I could take this.
Hmm.
And so that's where I was. And when she, passed, like it wasn't, I'm not even going to say a sense of relief, but it was, I'm so glad she's not suffering anymore
Yeah.
because there were it was scary. It was scary because she was making noises. She was like, because she couldn't talk, and it was just it was not pretty.
Mm,
Her transitioning, it just was not pretty, and that
mm,
was something I had nightmares about for months afterwards until honestly I went up for prayer at church, and when I say that woman prayed them visions out of me, because I couldn't sleep because when I closed my eyes, I saw, you know, her last moments and they weren't pretty.
mm.
And it was just, it was again, I don't know what words to use because it wasn't a sense of relief to lose my mama,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
know what you're trying to say.
but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, I was very glad that she wasn't suffering anymore, but I was lost. I was
Mm,
lost, like, and then shortly after that, because I didn't get to have a lot of time off of work. But what happened was God worked it out. They laid us off
mm,
shortly after, maybe a month or so afterwards.
mm.
Um, I was able to take a whole year and a half off of work so that I could do what I needed to do. Um, and I believe that that helped me out a lot. It changed my life in the sense that we were so codependent on each other.
Mm,
Um, we were working. I was working that out for me because I was like 20. I was 28 when she passed away, and I think Kylan was like maybe 7 years old, and Avery had to be 12 or 13, somewhere around there. And so for me, before I moved to Charlotte, because I think I was in Charlotte maybe a year and a half when she passed, somewhere around there.
mm,
The one of the reasons I moved was because I we all had a codependent relationship. I was at their house every single day. Dinner, they had the kids after school. When I got off of work, that's where I went. And it had got to the point where my dad would get mad if I wanted to take the kids straight home instead of
mm,
staying to eat dinner. And I wanted to cook them dinner and just rest and relax,
mhm,
instead of going home at 8 o'clock, after I've been at work all day. And so I just wanted my independence. And I just
mhm.
really, kind of wonder, like, or not wonder, but I'm just like, man, should I have stayed to have those last moments? But of course, you don't know. And like you
Right.
said, hindsight is
You
2020.
have no idea.
You have no idea. And for her and for your mom, they to be so young and pass away, it's just like, you
Yeah.
know, it leaves us like, well, I know it left me. I was very lost, and I did
Mhm,
not know. I ain't gonna say I didn't know how to be, but it just left me with feelings and things that I didn't know how to handle.
mhm.
And so, of course, I suppressed a lot, and then that I ain't gonna say it ended badly for me, but it didn't turn out well because it would just be moments of me just bursting into tears at the most inopportune times, driving a car. I sought help when it happened while I was driving, and I almost wrecked my car because I couldn't see because I was crying so bad.
Mm,
And that's what happens a lot of times when you suppress. It just, even though grief shows up at
yep,
any time, it
yep,
is even worse when you suppress and you just can't do anything about it. It's just whatever happens type of
yeah,
thing. So the way that it changed my life was, it's I can't even put it into words because I was the only child, and being the only child is like, you belong to me, I belong to you, that type of thing. And it's like, even though I have my husband and my kids, and I have my own family, but it's not the same. That mother's
mm,
love and that
mhm,
security and that
yeah,
comfort and wisdom and them knowing you better than anybody else, and like all of
mhm,
those things
mhm,
wrapped into one person. And then the fact that you're not prepared for death, because I don't think that in our day of growing up, I don't know about you, but in my day of growing up, nobody talked to us about death.
Mhm.
Nobody really talked
Right.
about it. Like all you knew was that somebody died and like they didn't come back. Like for me,
Mhm.
growing up, I experienced it at a very young age in the second grade with my aunt, and that was traumatizing because she lived like two doors down from us. And so all
Mhm.
I knew at that age was that the aunt that I used to go to every day and spend the night at her house on the weekends, I knew that one day she was there, one day she was gone, and she wasn't never coming back again.
Mhm.
And that traumatized me.
Well,
So
it's a lot of things that we did not talk about.
yeah.
Like back then, you know what I mean? Like you just kind of figured it out on your own. And that was one of those things. Death was not like a okay, this is what happened. She was sick and she
Mhm,
of course I found that
mhm.
out as I got older, but no, not when I was
Well,
not
what I mean by that is death in our community is not talked about. Yeah, at church it's talked about in the sense of, oh, they're gonna go to heaven and whatever, but it's not talked about in the sense of like, I don't know. It's just I just know that I wasn't prepared and I didn't like I can say that my son now, because he came after my mom passed and then a little later my dad passed, he understands death, and he understands because I had to introduce them or her to him that way and through a picture and through
Mhm.
memories that I could
Mhm.
verbalize, but I don't know, it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
Hard to
Yeah.
explain.
I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
And same, had to do the same with my youngest, like explaining what happened and all of those things, like the real raw
Mhm.
truth about what happened in death. And I think though we do a good job of
Mhm.
educating, just because of our generation having this whole what goes on in this house stays in this house type of thing. You sweep things under the rug, act like they don't exist, that kind of thing.
Right.
Like, no, we're not doing
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah, it changed my life in so many different ways, that in ways that I don't even know. It's indescribable, you know, um,
Mhm,
because when you have the type of relationship with your mom that you call them for everything, even if you got their stomach hurting, or
mhm,
if you need to know how to cook something,
mhm,
or if I mean, just every little thing, and then all of a sudden it's taken away. Like I like you was just angry and like, why did it have to be my mom?
mhm, mhm,
It, it's moms out here, and I'ma just be real with you. I was like, it's moms out here that gave their kids away,
mhm.
that leave their kids, abuse their kids,
Yeah,
and all of that stuff. Like, why? And they be
right,
going wrong.
right, right. And that's honest. Those are real feelings right there. Cause
Yeah,
same, I felt the exact same.
so it was tremendous. I'll say that, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the whole point of this is, I think that grief just does not have like a an expiration date. It's not like
Correct.
a whole timeline. Oh, by year 5, you'll be fine. You know what I mean? It's just it's triggers, and we talk about this a lot too.
Mhm.
Triggers. Something you might see something on a movie. A friend might say something, or you might see your friend with their mom, and it's a trigger, right? Because you can't every turn. I mean, you can't help
Yeah.
but to be consumed by it. So it's just a day by day thing, honestly. It's a day by day thing, and you just try to think of the good things, and you try to stay there because again, I don't think I'm at the point to where I'm suppressing it. Now I feel like I'm conjuring up, like ever since I went through therapy, that I had a period where I was pulling up some things that I felt like were dead or that I kind of put aside. And then I put it aside again to kind of
Mhm.
get through. And I'm realizing that that's kind of how I get
Mhm. Yeah.
through things. But I'm realizing that I can still think about the things. They don't have to um, affect me in that way. Like I can think about it and say, okay, well, she served her purpose while she was here. I think about the good times, but not necessarily like put blinders on, like, nope, I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about it at all, like it didn't happen. I don't think that's healthy
So
because again,
you just don't let it consume you.
right,
And I
right.
think after a while, after some years, and again, it doesn't everybody's grief is different, but in my experience as well, it after some years, you you can think about your mom and it not consume you with sadness, or
Mhm,
you can crack a joke or smile or say, talk about a time where something funny happened
mhm.
with her. And so, not saying that it gets easier, but it comes to a point where it's manageable,
Yeah,
and then you still have your moments.
absolutely.
Those are going to be sprinkled in there,
Absolutely.
wherever,
Mm,
and you just don't know when it's gonna be.
exactly.
You know,
It
um,
hit you at the most random time. It could be
yeah.
just like something crazy. You could be in line, drive through somewhere. You might
Mhm,
see something that just makes you think of
mhm.
them or whatever. You hear something.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. It's such a random thing, and it's kind of like, I ain't gonna lie, it's annoying at sometimes.
mm,
It's annoying to have to know that, to deal with it, and then have to know that this is gonna be something I'll be dealing with for the rest of my life.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. This
Yeah.
this is true. So many unanswered questions and
Oh my god.
all of that. And
That
I know we talked about that as well.
that part for me is very hard,
Mm,
because
yeah.
I don't know about you, but things continue to come up, or and
Hmm.
you just and there's no way that you can get answers.
Yep. Not straight from the source.
No way. Like,
Mm,
and that's who you want it from.
right.
So it's
Exactly.
just like, that's just
Yeah.
that's something
Yeah.
else. That's something else. So
That.
in a nutshell, we can say the day that everything changed and how it changed our life is not going to be condensed to that one day
Yeah.
that it changed. It's a lifelong thing. A lifelong
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah,
Yeah.
it just stays with you. I mean, that's the love. That's the one of the most important people in your life, and we
Mhm.
talked about that too. The belonging and how,
Mhm.
I mean, you were in
Yeah.
your mother's womb. She carried you, and that connection is just, it's
Mhm.
kind of like an automatic thing. So it's always gonna be with you. It's always
Yeah.
gonna be with you, that feeling of like, oh my God, I miss my mama. Like I wish I could pick up the phone and just say the most random stuff. You know what I mean? Doesn't even have to be anything important. Just hear your voice. But
Yeah.
memories.
Okay. So I think that's about enough before we
I'm so
get.
proud of myself for not breaking down.
You did great. You did great. I thank you for coming and sharing your experience. And,
Absolutely.
you always have a special place in my heart. And
Oh, yes.
I appreciate you.
Likewise.